Hey there, it's Mr. Tush, and let's have a conversation. I'm just going to open this up into present mode. Let's have a conversation about reputable sources because somebody dropped in and asked a really good question. I said, you know what? I'm going to try to explain this in a simple way so we don't get caught up in lots of exercises. At some point, we'll get into some formal evaluation of sources. But for this project, I just want to give you a quick overview. And that is, how do I know if the source I'm using is reputable? Because you're going to go on, you're going to do a Google search, and you're going to get a lot of answers. And it's kind of important to understand what to do with the answers you're getting. So let's take a look at how I like to explain this. I like to explain this like a traffic light. Red, yellow, and green. We kind of all understand the metaphor, and the metaphor is, red, stop. Yellow means kind of proceed with caution, and green means go ahead. So I'm going to kind of classify it red, yellow, green, so you understand what you're looking at. Red being, Danger Will Robinson, which is a reference to a movie called Lost in Space that none of you could possibly remember. Yellow is going to be helpful, but green's the what we're looking for. Now, what is a red source? A red source are things like this: blogs, social media, YouTube, cable news. And I say that because some of the cable news sources are actually okay, but generally speaking, it's the Wild West out there, so be careful when you're dealing with that. Red is generally speaking, okay, I can know about it, but stay away. Yellow gets a little bit better. Yellow are a lot of the things that come up at the top of Google searches, like online encyclopedias. Wikipedia is huge. I've had people who've actually taken the Google search engine results page, that's what SERP stands for, search engine results page, or the infographic that comes up on the right side and hand that in. And I'm like, that's not really what you want. So you can use those things for general information. I don't know anything about my topic, but don't put it in your paper. The things you want to use, and let me move my fat head here, the things you want to use are things like colleges and universities, .edu sites. Those are good things to look at. Scholarly research organizations like Pew Research, some of those big national organizations. And major national newspapers, sometimes a lot of the stuff that comes out of the New York Times is fairly reputable. Los Angeles Times, Washington Post, those tend to be reputable. But even then, there's some stuff that comes out of there you shouldn't use. You have to be careful. So it's a little deeper than that. If you're not sure if a source is good, go ahead and ask. I do want to encourage you to ask questions, but I'm not going to evaluate it. I'm going to answer questions with questions. So be aware of that. Let me take a minute and show you the kinds of things I'm talking about. What's red, yellow, and green. So I'm going to step out of this. I'm going to go to a brand new page. And I'm going to use, I wish I had my markers, but it's not there. I'm going to do a quick search for Dr. Martin Luther King. Let's take a look at that, all right? So Martin Luther King Jr., I just did a practice search. So I did a search for Martin Luther King Jr., and this is the SERP. This is the search engine results page. Let me see if my little markers are work, because I like using my markers. And remember when I said to you, oh my goodness, don't use Wikipedia. What's the first thing you get? Here's this Wikipedia. What if I clicked on that? Am I a bad person? You're not a bad person, but here's the thing. Wikipedia is a great thing if you have never heard of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which also indicates that you are culturally deprived and probably been living under a rock for quite some time. But in the meanwhile, if you don't know anything about him, here's a good way to kind of get some general knowledge: who he is, what he looked like. Okay, I got his face, I got his biography, I got a sense of who he's about. I can read this. Okay, I know who he's about. This isn't my paper. This is, okay, now I know what my paper is going to be about. So there's nothing wrong with it except to say that you just don't want that to be the only thing you use. Now, let's get back to it. What about this thing right here? This is called the infographic. The infographic, if you don't know what I mean, it's this thing right here, the infographic. Google's algorithm does that now, and I actually think it's kind of a cool technology where they give you the key pieces, and they actually have an algorithm that gives you his best quotes and birth and death dates, and that's great stuff. And if you really wanted to, you could actually pop this and share this directly into your Facebook feed and your Twitter feed. That stuff is great for people sharing knowledge with each other. It's reasonably common knowledge. I will tell you that Wikipedia is not evil. It's not the dark lord of Satan. It is simply something that is crowdsourced. So it's right 99% of the time. It's just that the luck of the Irish, Murphy's Law, says you're going to pick the 1% that's wrong. So you don't want to base your paper on that if you say Wikipedia. Whereas if it's like the New York Times, then you're going to get stuff that is much more important. So those are some examples of things that you're not going to want to do. But when you go down here, for example, to nobelprize.org, now, but here, this is Nobel Prize. His um, this is his biography from the Nobel Prize Committee. This is obviously going to be fairly well researched. And then the other thing you have is you have the bibliography that they used to talk about it. So now you're talking about some seriously good scholarship, because if you're going to write about the fact that he was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, well, this is a great source. It's a .org. The Nobel organization's internationally known. This is a good source. This is a green source for you, as opposed to over into the page here. This is kind of hit or miss. Oh, the kingcenter.org. You know what? An entire organization dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King and information about Dr. Martin Luther King, called the King Center. That one's going to have some good scholarship. Is it going to be biased? Yeah, he was biased towards civil disobedience, towards racial justice, towards social activism. That's okay. That's a part of it. There's no such thing as purely unbiased, so I'm not going to hit you with that word. So I hope you understand when I say to you what's green, yellow, and red, I'm really talking about, hang on, I'll bring this in real quick. This is Wikipedia land. This is some Joe Blow's YouTube or blog entry on it. But the stuff that I showed you at the end, the King Center, the Nobel organization, that kind of stuff, that's good greens literature. I hope you get the difference between green, yellow, and red. We will later on do some exercises in that. I just put this video up to kind of get you through the project. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.